Hi, this is Maggie from Crafts the Charm. Thank you for stopping by my channel. I'm so glad you're here. And you can see I'm keeping with the Tolkien theme this week, and I'm creating this sign. I love the saying, "Not all those who wander are lost," and I know a lot of other people love it too, because you see it everywhere. Not everybody knows the context, which is a poem called The Riddle of Strider, and it begins, "All that is gold does not glitter, not all those who wander are lost," and it goes on to talk about Aragorn. I love the phrase for a number of reasons. One is that I do love to wander and explore both in nature and in habitated places like cities, and the other is, I think, a little bit more metaphorical. I love the idea that there isn't just one path, and you might see a person you think is wandering from the path, but they're walking their own path. So I'm going to make this, and I'm going to start in Photoshop, and I will make this available to you, but if you're interested, you can see how I made the image in Photoshop, and then we'll move on to the more hands-on crafting part. To make the image, I want both a compass rose and a map. So I went to Wikimedia Commons and I searched on compass rose, and I found this image, which is in the public domain. Now, for the map, because the saying is from Tolkien, I thought that I would like a map of Middle-earth, and I did find this map, which is on Reddit, and the poster says that this is from the DVD set, extended edition of Fellowship of the Ring. And this is my general idea, is that I have this saying and I've arranged it over the compass rose and the map so that the points of the compass rose are the letters north, or N for north, east, south, and west, and I've managed to sort of work the saying in with the points of the compass. But this is much too wide. My picture frame is 11 inches. So I'm going to start over and try to recreate this. So I'm going to make a new image. So we're going to take that, copy that, paste that in. There's that. This is actually over the Middle-earth image. We're not going to be able to see that. Okay, now I have the map at 63% opacity and the compass rose at 26. Let's try just 60. And 25. We'll use some round numbers. Okay. So there's the image. Now, the north, south, east, and west, I'm hoping to put over this. So I'm not planning to print these in the final version, but I do want to factor them in. So those, let's see, are Cinzel 300 point with kerning of 120, and I just have them in black. Alright, and this font is Pristina 250 point. Alright, so now the other issue is now that this is not going to fit on one piece of paper. So we're going to have to print it out over multiple pieces of paper. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to print the N, the W, the E, and the S separately. So those aren't going to be in the first printing because we're going to be substituting some letters in there. I am a little worried about this distance here looking okay. I'm going to have to cut that S very carefully. I found this frame at the Dollar Tree, and it's 11 inches square. I really wanted a square frame for this project because it's a compass rose, which is a circle, so I didn't want a frame which was longer in one dimension than the image. Now I exported the image as a JPEG, and then I imported it into Adobe Acrobat, which will allow me to print the picture using tiling because I don't have a printer that can print something this large. So the first thing I had to do was just try to trim it so that I would be able to glue it together without the seams being very visible. And if I wasn't able to do this, what I was going to do was print it in reverse and try to Mod Podge it or image transfer it using Mod Podge onto a fabric, because I thought it might be harder to see where the pieces join if I did it that way. But I think I did okay joining it together this way. Now the piece of cardboard that was in the back of the frame was a little bit flimsy, and I need to adhere the image to something. So what I decided was to trace around this piece of cardboard on a stiffer piece of cardboard and cut that out. And now what I'm going to do is use Mod Podge, because Mod Podge is designed for decoupage, and I'm going to put the 4 pieces down and hopefully line them up well so that the seam won't be very visible. So I just applied the Mod Podge, laid each piece down, and flattened it out gently with my hands. Now I don't have a Cricut or anything like that that I could use to produce the letters that I'm going to put on top of this image, which are the compass letters N, S, W, and E. So what I did was I printed them out separately, and then I just cut them out as carefully as I could. The process that seemed to work best for cutting them out of craft foam, which is what I decided to use for the letters, was to cut pieces of craft foam that would be large enough to cut a letter out of, glue those 2 pieces together, glue the letter upside down on top of those, let them all dry, and then cut the letters out. Now, I didn't let them dry enough, so my letters came out a little wonky. I thought they were dry, but they weren't. I think if you have like small wooden letters, or if you have a Cricut, you could do a much better job with this than I did. So once they were good enough, I guess, I decided to paint them gold, and that is again a reference to the poem. And so the colors that I used are, for the base color, Deco Art Dazzling Metallics in Rich Espresso, and I painted them completely in that. And then for the lowlights, I took Plaid Folk Art Multi-Surface Chocolate Brown, mixed that into what was left of the Rich Espresso, and added a little Deco Art Americana Burnt Umber. And I painted that around the edges, so the sides, basically. And then I dabbed it into the top paint. The top paint was still wet. I then let that dry. And then for highlights, I just dabbed on very lightly, so basically dry brushing, but dabbing, Folk Art Metallic Pure Gold, and also Deco Art Dazzling Metallics Champagne Gold. Now in the past I've just used the champagne gold. I couldn't decide between these 2 golds, and so I just put both on. But I think you get something that looks a lot more like a real metal if you do this technique with your base color and then highlights and lowlights. For the frame, I decided to paint it with simply the base color, the Deco Art Dazzling Metallics Rich Espresso. I really just liked that all by itself. I was going to do the highlights and lowlights, but I didn't think it needed it. So I did need to give the frame 2 coats of that. I decided to paint over the lettering on the image. And I used the burnt umber. And you're only seeing me paint a little bit of this because I really need to be a lot closer to the letters to paint them carefully. But I felt like I wanted there to be brush strokes. I wanted this cursive, this sort of a hand-drawn font. I wanted it to look like it really was painted on, and so I did paint over it. I then used white glue to glue the letters onto the image. And I had, when I created it, lined them up with the edges of the compass rose, so that helped me line them up on the image. The image didn't quite extend to the edges of the frame, so I did paint the edges of the image with the burnt umber paint. I used painter's tape to get the lines straight on 3 edges, and then I just did the 4th edge by hand. I did have to do a little bit of touch up on the W because the painter's tape peeled up some of that paint. Once all of that had dried, I decided that I liked it in the frame without the glass. So I put it in the frame, and without the glass it needed that backing cardboard in there as well to hold it tight against the front of the frame. And here it is. I'd love to know what you think of it. I really wanted to put the words on the compass rose using those letters N, S, E, and W, and I have never seen anybody do that before, but I'm not sure how successful it was just because they are in sort of a weird place in the words. So I would love to know your thoughts. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you enjoy this sort of content, please subscribe to Crafts the Charm. Thank you for spending time with me today. Take care.